again here with Lauren Elizabeth Fine Art for another animal painting tutorial for stress relief. Today we will be painting a adorable German Shepherd on a 6x6 canvas. And the painting behind me is another pet portrait that I am not done with, something I've been working on for a client, golden retriever called Macy. And on that note, I was thinking of starting a little series where we can practice our dog breeds, so golden retrievers, German shepherds, pit bulls, on these 6x6 canvases, something that will teach you the techniques I use to paint fur, whiskers, paws, and while also making it therapeutic and stress relieving. So tell me what you think about that idea in the comment section below. I really want to make these benefit you as best I can. And if you already are not subscribed, make sure you click the subscribe button for regular weekly tutorials for stress relief. And make sure you click the like button if this has helped you. So guys, without further ado, let's get painting. As usual, guys, all the materials and supplies that you'll need are in the description box below. And if I ever go too fast or if something you have to repeat something, just pause and play your video. So I started on a plain canvas, a 6x6 canvas, using just regular graphite pencil. And looking at the reference photo that the client gave me, I just started drawing this German Shepherd. Now, just for confidential reasons, I do not have an image to show you of this German Shepherd, but if you would like to look at reference photos that I have put in the description box below, by all means, that can help you create a head-on, neck-up image of a German Shepherd, just like this one. The next step that I always do after drawing is the background. And the color I chose was cobalt blue, of course the blue, and titanium white. Now, by all means, you can do whatever color you would like. If you would like it for a female, it can be pink or purple. If you would like this for a male, add some green, add some, just have fun with it. But one tip that I always tell people is that darker dogs usually do better with a lighter background, and vice versa for a lighter dog. So otherwise you'll lose the dog in the background. You don't want the colors too similar. Make a good amount of this color because you're going to be painting the sides of the canvas and the front, and then make sure you get as close to the outline that you made of the dog as possible. You don't want to leave any outline, any white space between the background paint and your dog, because otherwise you're going to have to go back and match that color. So go ahead, once you've mixed your color together, dampen your fat brush, your largest brush, and start painting. Use this time to relax, to just get your mind right, your hands warmed up, and ready just to paint and enjoy yourself. Okay, so now that we have the background behind us, the two colors we're going to mix together is raw umber and burnt sienna. And like I always like to do with my pet portraits is start with the darkest layer and work to our lightest layer. And so we're going to be starting with the section of the body and the fur, not doing anything with the eyes and the nose or the ears. So we're just going to focus on the fur. And as you can see, how I'm mixing these colors is I'm adding a little bit of the lighter color with more of the darker color. I want this to be a dark background because German Shepherds are almost black, but it's a really dark brown. Here I found myself using a brush that was just far too small. If you're trying to primarily cover the surface first, which is kind of our first steps, you don't want to start with a real tiny detail brush. This is a smaller canvas, so you will have to use smaller brushes, but I really recommend using the brush that I used, which is all in the description box below. This is a bit bigger than the detail brush I just used. So I'm just placing this color around the sides of the face, areas that not only aren't getting a whole lot of sunlight, but are also dark for a lot of German Shepherds. And again, German Shepherds range. They have a lot of the same colors, but these colors can be in different spots, just like most other dog breeds. And so if you just watch me where I place these colors, just follow along. Definitely utilize your water. You just want to dampen your brush. You don't want it just sopping wet when you're reapplying paint to the canvas. So between adding paint, you definitely want to keep washing it out in your water so that it just doesn't get too thick, because when your brush gets too thick with dried paint, you're not able to make straight lines. You're spewing wet and dry paint on your canvas, and it starts to look kind of funky. So make sure you definitely use your water throughout. It's really okay if you get into the background color. By now that should be dry, so you don't want that to mix, but it's really okay to have the pointed ears and the hair go over that background, as opposed to the opposite, which is having white left over because you're afraid to touch that background. It's better to go over than have leftover white. As you can see, I'm using my flat brush to create the start of texture of hair. And I really like using a flat brush because as long as there's not a whole lot of paint on it, and you can just use the edge of that flat brush and turn it on its side to create that hair that's kind of pointing down. So as I'm painting, I'm starting to create that texture along the hair by the neck and the cheeks. It's very normal and very okay if you feel kind of intimidated by painting your pet or painting this random German Shepherd. It's all new, and especially at the beginning of the painting when you have no idea how it's going to look, doing things like this can really just open your mind up to making mistakes and how it's possible to fix mistakes and learn from mistakes. And I really I know that every painting that I have ever painted, I've made mistakes and I've learned from them. So hopefully you can do that here. Sometimes I feel more comfortable just holding my canvas because it's so small. So if that helps you, by all means do the same thing especially as you get towards the bottom, it can really make it easier to paint the bottom of the canvas, and then also making sure you're not leaving any white on the very bottom. Working on canvases of this size is just so great for beginners. I think you can just try so many different avenues. I mean, you can develop your style this way, you can practice certain techniques, you can see if you like painting animals, you can see if you like painting flowers. I mean, these canvases are only costing me like a little more than $1 a piece. So definitely something to look into. Buying in bulk is what I do. I'm always getting cheaper that way. Online is what I do. And yeah, especially if you're trying to get into a habit of relaxing with art. Later I'm going to go in with black and just fill in the eyes. But for now, before we do that, we're just going to create an outline around the eyes so we don't lose that shape. We don't want to lose the placement of her eyes, so we can go in and cover that later. Sometimes it can be really hard to find exactly where those dark places are, but generally I think of two things. One, the tone of the animal, like the color tone, so I'm looking for the darkest parts there. And then two, where the sun is not hitting or hardly getting to. So even if you're painting this dark color on areas that are lighter, that's really okay because it dries really fast and we can go over with any of the other tones later. But the main goal for this part of the painting is just to cover it. We don't want to cover the whole dog just this color because then we lose certain details of the dog, but mostly we want to cover most of the dog this color, just laying down the first layer. Phew, that took a while, I know, and I'm so glad that we're on the next step so that we can start mixing some more beautiful colors. But guys, for our next paint mixture, we are going to be mixing burnt sienna, raw umber, and titanium white. Watch how I create the medium tones. I'm just adding a little bit of each color because I'm not entirely sure how bright I want to make this, because I'm going to keep layering light on light. So just watch me and I'm going to test it. And if you have, I apologize, this is a little hard to see because camera's a little farther away, but we are trying to make this lighter than the dark color that we just made. So in doing that, make sure you add a good amount of white, but not too much. And take note to where I'm covering the white part. I'm not covering all of the white, but most of it. And I'm also doing my hair technique where I use a brush that's on its side and I'm using the edge of the flat brush. And so I do that in some spots just to start giving it more of that hair texture. Be sure to make a good amount of this color. We're also going to be painting the ears with this color and the top of the head. So make sure that you have a good amount ready for those steps. So if you look close enough, you'll see tiny little white spots that I left, and I don't really want to do that. So other than the tongue and the nose and the eyes, make sure you cover up those little white dots that we may have left along the way painting. I'm realizing here that I kept using brushes that were just too small for the area that I painted. But you can actually go on with a much, not a huge brush, but a little bit bigger brush to do these ears. I wasted a little bit of time just using this tiny brush to paint these ears. So by all means, go ahead, use a little bit bigger brush, cover that, and fast forward to the next step. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go on with our black and just define the shape of the eyes and the nose and certain parts of the dog. So just grab your Mars black and your detail brush and let's get painting. I am always asking about people's animals and their dogs, and since we're painting a German Shepherd, I would love to know in the comment section below if anyone has a German Shepherd and any funny stories that they can share about this dog. I love all breeds, and I think every breed has something special about them. And so I would just love to read these stories, so make sure you do that. Leave that in the comment section below. I read every single comment. I try to respond to every single one. So thank you. Time to mix our next color. We are moving on to the tongue, and the colors we're going to be using is rose red, titanium white, and burnt sienna. I added very little of the brown, but just enough to create that darker tone for the tongue. This dog has an adorable tongue that's sticking out, so the front part of the tongue is going to be lighter, and of course where the sun isn't really hitting inside the mouth, that's going to be a bit darker. Well, I'm going back to my medium brush, make sure it's damp, and we're just going to fill in almost all of the tongue until we get to that darker point by the mouth. There are many times when I'm painting where I'm mixing colors on canvas, but to do this you need to have some sort of wet paint on the canvas in order to do that. So as we mix this tone, this red tone for the tongue, I'm actually just grabbing a little bit of that dark brown mixture that we made earlier, or you can just add any of the browns, really. It doesn't matter what brown you take, just a little bit to create that darker tone underneath the mouth. And I'm just mixing that on my canvas in with the red that I made to create that shadow. Then after I've done that, I just add a very thin layer of the darkest brown to create that dark line in the center of the tongue. And that's just straight brown. So again, it doesn't really matter what brown you use. They're both darker than the red, and you would just use the edge of your flat brush to create that straight line. Now we're going to be moving on to our highlights, and we're going to be using 3 colors here: raw umber, burnt sienna, and titanium white. As you can see, I'm adding a good amount of white to this color because I really want it to stand out amongst the 2 brown tones that we just made. So not too much white, but enough that it'll definitely show up over top those browns. Because I want to make a really thin curved edge around the eyes and other areas, I really want that fine line edge with my medium brush. So like I said, again, the flat brush is great for making those straight or thin curved precise lines. This particular dog has a highlight that goes from the middle of the top of the head down the middle, and you don't have to do that to your German Shepherd, but this is just what I was on the reference photo for me. But feel free just to continue to make those highlights with that color. I know I've definitely seen a lot of German Shepherds have more light tones on their face, but this particular one is a bit on the darker side. So if you're painting a German Shepherd that has a lot more tans, definitely add tans, so like a raw sienna with titanium white to this particular color that we're using right now. We are almost done. We are just gonna work on the highlights now on the nose, and all that's gonna require is a gray. We're gonna make a dark gray using Mars Black and titanium white, and we're just gonna place that where the sun is hitting the nose. Again, I'm just hitting the top of the nose where the light is shining, and then I'm also going to get the little highlights right around the nostrils, and I'm going to make them as symmetrical as possible on both sides. I wanted to make an even lighter highlight on the nose by just simply adding titanium white to that gray we just made. So add a little bit of white and apply that in just one little section on top of the nose. The last highlight we're going to add for the fur is our burnt umber and our raw sienna. Like I said before, some of the German Shepherds that you're painting will have more of this color than the one I'm painting, but I'm going to be placing this color sporadically using the technique for hair, using my flat brush, all around the eyes, the ears, the face, and so feel free to add more of this color if you want. So here I start doing that wet into wet technique where I'm adding just straight raw sienna into that wet paint that I had just applied. And so I'm just putting that especially around underneath the chin, on areas above the eyebrows, and so that just made it pop even more. So dogs get a lot of blood flow to their ears, and so we really want to make sure we add a little bit more red, pinkish tones to the inside of the ears. And so I'm adding burnt umber, rose red, and titanium white. The beautiful sunset is taking place to my right, and I wish you could see it, but it is just causing a little bit of a glare, so I apologize if this causes you to see the colors a little bit harder. I'm applying this paint using the side of my flat brush, and I want this to be not super bright because I really want to also have those darker tones in the background. At last, we can start tackling those eyes. We're going to be using burnt umber and raw sienna. Feel free to use whatever brush you're comfortable with. This is a very small detail spot that we'll be painting, so use whatever brush is best for you. Try your best to make those as round as possible. You want them touching the outside of the eye, but still leaving some on the corners of the eyes. Now we're going to go in and make a light gray for the hair of the ears. The German Shepherd has very, very large, tall ears, and for protection, they have a lot of hair in the inside of their ears. And so we're gonna make a gray, and like always, we're gonna use the side of that flat brush and just create the hair going from inside out. last and final step, we are adding just plain titanium white with our detail brush and adding those beautiful highlights to the eyes, just a little dab on each eye, and that'll just complete your painting. I really hope you enjoyed this. This is a tutorial that took me quite a little time to prepare for you, and I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know if this is something you would want to do for other dog breeds or even cat breeds, cat types for that matter. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure you leave that in the comment section below. And I look forward to seeing you next week for another animal painting tutorial. All right, guys, have a nice day. Bye.